We are going to watch very far lefty YouTuber Vaush. He's going to debate a pickup artist on the Red Pill, Jordan Peterson, and more. Now it's 2 hours, so we could skip around, right?
The Red Pill subreddit, which I used to look at quite a bit, I mean, it literally had like people in favor of rape. Depending on where you go on the spectrum, I'm going to disagree more or less. But generally speaking, I feel like pickup artistry often like misses the social interaction, and it can be really difficult to form good relationships when you're following the archetype of like, engagement with women.
Yeah, I would say that 99.99% of the Red Pill community would not be in favor of rape, obviously. I think that goes without saying. But okay, so let's get into the, I guess, gamification.
Wait, what was the percentage? He said 95?
99.9%. I mean,
Okay,
that's
99.9.
that's not really a stat.
That's a feeling. And I don't think that that's an accurate stat.
It's trying to downplay the manosphere, online right-wing,
And I'm like,
MAGA-adjacent manosphere.
I'm like,
vibe.
sir, have you been on the internet? Because motherfuckers love to say horrible shit like that.
I see your point that, it can be like if you're going off, you have like a weird checklist in your mind, that can be, kind of awkward and cringe. But what if you're a guy who has like you don't have good social skills for whatever reason? Maybe you didn't have a good upbringing. Maybe no one ever explained to you. And like you just don't really understand how to talk to women. Like you just don't know what to do. And like what would be bad about having like some stuff in the background being like, okay, I should maybe flirt with her, I should move things forward. Like, do you see that as problematic?
No, I think it's important to keep some things in mind. It really depends on the type of advice that's being given. I think it can be useful to practice talking to people. I think one of the biggest considerations, especially with talking to women, is there are some things that women consistently do socially differently from men, and a lot of that has to do with being afraid of men. Men tend to be like predatory in a lot of social and physical interactions. So I feel like the big issue is like the big dichotomy is a lot of people want to open up and to be direct and engaged and to indicate their interest, but they also understand that they could come across as creepy if they do it in the wrong way. And that's where the whole meme, like, if you're ugly, you get called creepy. If you're hot, you get called flirty.
I mean, I don't know if we're even necessarily disagreeing on that point. I do think like if you have this very structured, rigid idea of learning and a man-to-woman interaction should be, that's probably going to be detrimental to your own success because then it's not going to feel organic. But I want to expand on what you said about the predatory thing. So are you referring to, like, are you saying that most men are predatory when they interact with women, or are you talking about, like, a small exception?
No, I don't think most men. I would say that most men are insufficiently aware of how their behavior can trigger red flags.
I think that a lot of men are predatory. Yes. I think that it's very like naive to say that it's not. Predatory doesn't necessarily mean with ill intent.
You just want to get laid. You just want to have like
But it is predatory. It is, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a goal in mind, to say the least.
Let's go to playing off people's insecurities. Let's
that?
skip the drama.
Yeah, like, can we skip the fucking R stuff?
Yeah.
There's this game, and we just basically want to help you play it better. I mean, that's the basic premise. It's not to like create a game when game doesn't exist, right? Like, oh, let's make everything a game. Let's make human interaction a game. I think it's just like, okay, let's acknowledge that there's this social game and just basically help you play it better. So you're not, because if you don't know how to play the game at all, and like a chick, for example, is like playfully flirting with you, and then you just take that, you can't pick up on that, and you're just like, what did I do, right? She's just gonna be turned off. She's like, this guy has like no social intuition. That's like a pretty, just one example.
For what it's worth, I think that any woman who would react that way is probably not worth your time anyway. It's mostly about how you play that game, especially when it comes to dating and sex. A lot of people are really, really easy to manipulate. Not just women, like everyone. A lot of people are horny and desperate, right?
I mean, that's
There
true.
are definitely ways to increase the likelihood of you sleeping with someone, but I think a lot of them involve kind of playing off insecurity in a way which it's not rape or anything. But I do feel like it's not conducive to building a healthy relationship with that person.
So I think we might have stumbled upon a potential disagreement. So can you give me an example of like how that would be, like how you could play off a person's insecurity?
Negging.
Negging. That's the big one, right? That's
Yeah.
the practice of playfully insulting a person in order to make them self-critical or self-conscious, so that they're more receptive to compliments and more willing to believe that your interest in them is worthwhile.
Yeah, that is a good example. It's not really common in the pickup community nowadays. Like, I think the vast majority of PUA channels will like kind of mock the idea of negging. It's something that what came about from Neil Strauss's book, The Game. And I think that book made it seem like it's something that's much more prevalent than it is.
By the way, Neil Strauss released a book after the game about deconditioning his brain from his pickup artistry. Like he had a whole book that was like, oh,
He
who
was
have
like-
I become? Like a midlife crisis
He
kind
was
of
like,
thing.
this was not good. What I said was bad, guys.
Yeah.
It's like the same person who did the alpha and beta men. It was like a scientific study based on wolves.
Beta.
And then the scientist was just like, oh my God, please, everybody stop using it. There's no such thing as a beta man. You guys aren't wolves. Stop taking this out of fucking context.
Also, your role as alpha or beta changes depending on the situation you're in. Like if you're bad at chess and you're in a group of great chess players, you just became the beta in that situation.
Yeah, it's very silly.
Let's say you were on a date with a girl and you were feeling horny and you just want to fuck the shit out of her. Like, would you actually say that to her, or?
Yeah, well, not like as an opener. It's not the first thing that come out of my mouth, but yeah, as a general thing, if you're at a party or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I'm enjoying talking to you, and I think you're hot. I don't know if you feel the same way, but if you are interested, you can do X or Y. Something like that.
Hypothetical conversation is not the way that humans speak, and I wish that they gave an example where it was something that somebody would actually say to somebody, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say in my fucking life, I think you are very hot and attractive, and if you want to have sex with, like, I've never heard anybody just phrase it that way.
Well, what if, like, for example, like you're on a date and the chick is talking and like what she's talking about is just boring the shit out of you, and like in your mind you're just thinking, like pretty much every guy's had this. You're like, you know what? I just want to fuck this girl and I just don't want to talk to her because her personality is such a turnoff, but she's so hot. Like, would you actually express that to her?
I wouldn't want to fuck somebody I found that boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's a very meathead mentality. It's a very Chad mentality. Be like, oh, when is this fucking bitch gonna shut up so I can fuck the shit out of her?
This is why I'm like, no, yeah, I'm good.
Dare I say it's a slightly childish mindset?
Yeah, just don't fuck that person, man. These men aren't thinking about whether they're gonna like have a good time. They're like, I'm going to jerk off with this woman's body.
It's more of a conquest.
If I wanted to, if that was the goal, I think you could pull the conversation away from that if you want to. I have no patience for boring conversations. I don't think anyone should have to put up with that for pussy.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, don't
It's like
fuck us.
basically you're saying you would express yourself in a socially calibrated way. That's kind of like the feeling I'm getting, which I think is fine. I think that there's advantages and disadvantages to that strategy. I think that the advantage is that the girls that you hit it off with, like, you're going to hit it off with more. Like, meaning, like, you're by being polarizing, you're screening out a lot of people, but the people you do match with, it's going to be like.
He's right about that. I'm gonna switch to body counts. That's the next chapter
Yeah.
in there.
First of all, it is undeniable that if you're a woman, it's easier to get laid off of Tinder or whatever. Now, I'm not just into women;
Yes.
I'm pan. So with gay men on the table, 500 body count is a by the end of the afternoon type thing. Okay, these queers are insane.
I don't think that all queer people have a body count of 500.
I think, yeah, obviously.
I think that's-
He's just talking about gay men.
Yes, like gay men tend to have more casual sex, but I feel like saying 500 is kind of like sensationalizing it. And I don't think all gay men are like that. So
I will say though,
But wouldn't that actually give you a really good perspective, because you know what guys are like, you know what girls are like, right?
honestly, the only impression that it's really given me, I genuinely do not think it's a difference in how horny or how willing they are. I think the main difference is that gay men aren't as afraid of men, genuinely, because in terms of like, so
that's true.
in terms of perceived threat, but with a lot of gay men, like they don't have this ingrained fear of men. A lot of women do. And a lot of that's because, they've heard their entire life stories of female relatives or friends who have been abused or assaulted. And I think that there's like a trust barrier that they need to overcome in ways that men don't. The first time I ever talked with a guy off Tinder, this is in early college, because before it was just in-person stuff with the guys, They told me, you can come on by later tonight. We're having a party, I'll be in this bedroom. Here's the house number. Here's the address. What the fuck are you doing? I hadn't even shown this guy my dick yet. And he's already given me his goddamn address, bedroom location, off the front door, unafraid, And I think that fear is a big thing. I wonder if maybe given enough time, things level out a bit. Maybe that fear barrier will lessen, and you'll
That's a
have
good
women who
point.
are way more aggressive about this because they don't have that fear. They'll act like gay bottoms.
I mean,
Maybe.
I do think it's a factor. I won't deny that. I do think that fear is a factor. Sometimes maybe a woman's horny, but then she's like, oh, if I meet up a random guy, there's a risk, and I do think quite often women overblow the risk. Like I think the risk, like statistically speaking, is really small.
What?
Especially if you take certain precautions. But there is
You
a risk.
fucking kidding me? There are a lot of very aggressive men. It's very weird. Like it's like
especially men who want to fuck without a condom. That's really common.
Yeah, super common. I've definitely had people try to pull it off. I've also had men that maybe aren't rapey, but they're persistent and they won't leave you alone. But it's like a whiny thing where they're just like trying to rub their fucking dick on you and they're just like, just touch it, please. You know, like, and they're just like consistent, right? And the thing is, if you like somebody, right, like you're on a date with this person, or especially if you're horny, maybe you do want to fool around, but then like somebody just keeps whipping their fucking dick out. Also, when men are rejected or they feel like they've been slighted, they can turn from being a very nice person to being very aggressive and very violent very quickly. And it's very hard to read who and who isn't going to snap like that. Even when you think that you've vetted somebody and that they're chill, that could fucking switch in a second.
I do agree that there's also a social aspect to it with slut shaming and whatnot. More so in some countries, less so in other countries. But in my opinion, I think the biggest factor is just simply has to do with the fact that men quite often are just like, yeah, like I want to fuck like a lot of different, I want to have a lot of different partners. And I think girls on average are much more likely to get attached when they have sex than men. Some men do too. And some women can have sex without pair bonding. But more generally speaking, women on average don't want to fuck a bunch of dudes.
It's not the pair bonding. Is that having sex with a new guy every night? Do you know how often you wouldn't come? If you find one person and they could do it right, you're like, shit, I'm going to keep you in the rotation because at least you know how to fuck.
I'll give an example. I don't know if you're familiar with like the BDSM community, right? But if you go to like a swingers club or a swingers party, it's a very safe environment. Like there's like it's the safest environment ever. There's a bunch of security, like consent is like a huge thing there, right? You can't even like touch someone without asking for permission. It's not like a sexual free-for-all, which some people think it is. But even in those environments, like when a girl goes there, she might have sex with like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 guys or something, right? But a guy who goes there, he'll have sex with like, he'll just engage in gangbangs with all the chicks. So like the guys there are just still having way more sex with way more partners than chicks are.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. I was like,
I've never been to a swingers club.
I was like, sir, have you been to a swingers like club though? Have you actually been? I've been to swingers clubs and I've been in different like BDSM like kink parties. I also don't think that they're automatically the safest places. There's still weird shit that happens. There's safer places. There's no real thing such as like a safe place, right?
I know there are some women who will just get railed like 7 ways till sundown by 80,000
there are those, yeah.
God bless them, I think one of the big differences is actually down to the quality of sex, right? So if we're talking all like straight cis people or whatever, I can hook up with anyone. I'll always come. Because I'm the guy, I have a dick, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I just hook up with just some random chick, I will come, She might not, especially not, well, I try, I do my best. But if she's just, like, railing 50 dudes or whatever, she's not going to come from a lot of those interactions. And I feel like just do kind of the physiology of a pussy in comparison. Maybe the quality versus quantity thing is because guys have a virtual guarantee they're going to nut when they
He's making the same point you made.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think also like for most women, in order to have an orgasm, they need a good amount of comfort, and for some women, a good amount of women, they also need a bit of connection. Like for example, for me, right, if there's a hot chick on my bed, we can literally talk to zero. Like we don't even have to communicate at all. I can still have like cum, like right if I fuck her, right. But for most chicks, that wouldn't really be possible. Like some random dude shows up in their bed with their dick out, even if that guy's like super attractive. Like most of the time, they won't be able to cum. Like they need like that kind of connection. And
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that would be so tight. I love the idea. I think I would have way more sex with men if we're talking about this magical scenario where men don't talk.
You're not a fan of Jordan Peterson, right?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. I do very much find your claim that he's a fascist kind of problematic. Do you truly believe that, or was that you just being hyperbolic?
I think that he enables fascism as a social movement. He personally focuses too much on hyper-individualism for me to fairly categorize him as a fascist. If I said he's a fascist, like in that language specifically, then that was incorrect of me.
Okay.
I do think he sort of enables that trend, though.
Can you clarify, like, in which way does he enable it?
The biggest one by far is his insistence on the defense of Western civilization against outwardly corrosive forces. He's a big fan of the the cultural Bolshevism conspiracy theory, or cultural Marxism, they call it today, which was a Nazi conspiracy theory about how Western civilization is being eroded from within by an elite group of academically inclined, subversive types, and they're trying to make people anti-white and this and that. I think what he's referring to is just the progressive force that made Western civilization good to begin with. Because I feel like if he'd been around 400 years ago, he would have called, like, the Enlightenment thinkers that exactly.
You know what I think we should do?
What?
Learn about the Enlightenment thinkers. European politics, philosophy, science, and communications were radically reoriented during the course of the long 18th century as part of a movement referred to by its participants as the Age of Reason, or simply AKA Enlightenment. Question traditional authority. They embrace the notion that humanity could be improved through rational change.
My opinion is that he heavily overblows it. I don't think there's like this big conspiracy.
He said
or, like,
blows it.
Very bro-y joke of you.
Dick joke, fart.
But they do exist, like some anti-white sentiment. Like, I've met chicks like that. Like, and it's really bizarre to me. Or like,
I've met some chicks like that.
Chicks is not really like in my vocabulary.
I kind of like birds, like how British people
Look at that
bird over there.
I don't want to be referred to as poultry ever.
on TikTok, you see it a lot. Like, oh, you're a white guy, fuck you. Like automatically, like, okay, sorry for being born white. Like, let me call my parents and ask for a refund. Like that sentiment does exist. I don't think it's nearly as prevalent. But would you say it just doesn't exist at all? Like,
oh no, it totally exists. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's
What does that have to do with Jordan Peterson being a hack or not?
Yeah, what does that have to
It's
do
a
with
total
it?
Okay, I've had enough of this.
I've had enough of this crap.
Give me the weed, pass me a joint. Let's all get